Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission for the City of Clawson for Tuesday, August 28th. I'm going to open the meeting at 7:30, and can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Audia? Ms. Fenton?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Mr. Kucera?
Here.
Mr. McHale? Ms. Prouse? Ms. Scripture?
Here.
Mr. Shepard?
Here.
Mr. Watson?
Agenda item number 4 is the approval of the regular minute meetings from August 14th, 2018.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting for August 14th, 2018. Support.
Anybody changing, corrections, deletions? All good? Roll call, please.
Ms. Fenton?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepard?
Yes.
Mr. Audia?
Yes.
Agenda item number 5 is consideration of a site plan approval for 1177 West Maple Road. Proposed, I believe it's Maida Automotive Office in the Business Renewal District. Would you like to talk to this city planner or start us out?
Good evening. As mentioned, tonight we are here to discuss a proposed site plan for 1177 West Maple Road. This is an existing one-story industrial building. It's located in our BRD2 zoning district. That's Business Renewal District 2. The lot itself is about 2.23 acres, and the existing structure is about 39,000 square feet. I believe, is it Mada Automotive? Mada Automotive would like to utilize the front portion of the existing building for an office for their business. This would be in the northeast corner of the existing structure. And as per the zoning ordinance, this change of use does require site plan review, and we're trying to make sure to come into substantial compliance with all our zoning ordinances. So as this would be mainly focused only on offices are permitted permissible use in the BRD2. The structure itself is conforming with all our existing dimensional requirements. When it comes to parking, the site currently has, between the parking located in the front of the structure and the rear, a total of about 74 spaces as indicated by the architect. They are proposing to pave the western side of the building, which is currently not connected to the front hard surface and is composed right now of green lawn area and existing trees, and proposing to construct 29 new vehicle parking spaces in that location. So this would result in a total as proposed of actually not 104 per your letter on page 2, but 103. When taking a look at their proposal, they have proposed removing one space on in the northern lot. However, when we take a look at it, it does seem that a second space needs to be removed as well, because the width of the spaces would indicate that the remaining space would hang into the new western access drive. So we would recommend removing that space as well. In addition, when it comes to the ADA accessible or barrier-free parking spaces, there are 3 that are indicated within the existing hard surface. They're not currently striped that way, but they're utilized that way. So in order to come in compliance actually it's more about the van accessible standards. They would need to alter the proposed striping to include one of the proposed spots for a vehicle access point. So on your site plans, I did throw in some dimensions there. Our ordinance does require per ADA 13-foot wide space, which is composed of 8 feet for the vehicle and 5 feet for the loading zone, a safe area for the occupants to exit. So in this case, we're asking them to make a revision right here to allow for the larger 8-foot landing area for a zone, for a van accessible structure, vehicle on that side. And additionally, on the south side of the existing structure, there is, as illustrated, two loading areas, but then there's also a bank of about, it's labeled as 14, they're illustrating 12 parking spaces. And based on our visit to the site and how it would operate, it seemed like they could interfere with the zone, with the loading area and canopy immediately west of those spaces. So we just would recommend removal of those spaces entirely, just for traffic circulation of vehicles. I mean, it'd be really hard for any kind of truck, even if it was just a box truck or a smaller scale, to maneuver in there. And when I get at the moment to the well, let's take a look at bottom of page 2, where we go into the standards. The standards for this type of use, when considering everything, is about 500 square feet of gross floor area, so resulting in about 78 required spaces per the ordinance. When you factor in what they're proposing to go up to 103. If we make the revisions as I recommended, we'd go down to about 87. So they're still in excess of the minimum required. And I did have a discussion with the architect with regards to this, because they would be removing some green space. And they indicated that in their opinion, they'd like to maximize the marketability of the site by having parking in other areas. And it would help with them if they feel that circulation is necessary. Taking a look at the site, when I went out there, there are two pedestrian human scale doors, normal doors, on the western edge of the building but there are no overhead doors, so I don't believe the west side of the structure would be utilized for any type of loading. But it's as the property owner, if they're requesting it, it's something that we can consider. With that new parking lot, however, when I get down to paragraph 4, they are required to make sure that it drains properly and to make sure that the barrier around on the very western edge has either a curb or the hard surface is protected with bumper blocks to avoid vehicles from crossing over the property line and damaging the surface of the edge of the hard surface. So we would recommend, however, the site plan does not indicate currently how they would deal with both drainage and with any kind of proposed barrier, so we recommend the site plan be revised to show what kind of barrier they would like to utilize on the west side, and to, and in our opinion, based on the dimensions existing, it would be beneficial to have a curb, an actual curb along that western property. Loading, as I mentioned previously, the loading area would be benefit from having the removal of those 14 illustrated car spaces. Trash removal, technically, they do need to just indicate where the trash removal the location of the dumpsters would be. Chances are they're probably just located in the structure, which is perfectly fine, given that it's the rest of it is for an industrial type use. So that just needs to be indicated on a revised site plan. Landscaping and screening. Technically, per our zoning ordinance, they are supposed to provide only a 10-foot wide green belt, and then also one tree for every 30 lineal feet of frontage along West Maple. They are providing additional trees in the form of 7 deciduous and 4 evergreen trees, but they're locating that as a combination of along the northeast corner of the existing lawn area. They are proposing one landscape island on the western edge inside to break up the massive hardscape on the western side, and then also in that northwest corner, they're proposing a landscape area. However, we would recommend, normally the 10-foot barrier is continuous along your frontage roads. However, and usually if it's either a combination of located on the private property or in the right-of-way. However, this is located along West Maple. Oakland County Road Commission does not consider utilizing landscaping within their right-of-way. So the property line, as indicated, is only about, indicates that there's about 5.3 feet of space between the property line and the beginning of the hard surface. So we would recommend, in addition to what's proposed, adding a landscaping bed along that entire 5.3 foot wide area to screen the parking. It can be a combination of mulch and bushes, just so that way to make the site more attractive, to screen the parking slightly and utilize with what's currently there. But I think the addition of a landscape bed with mulch and that sort of attributes would benefit the site and soften the building, that sort of thing. They are proposing landscaping along the perimeter of the northern perimeter of the building as well, so that's a good thing. However, we would recommend that additional amount of landscaping. Architecture, when it comes to the site, they did provide a architectural sheet that shows a proposed fence, basically a fence element on the, and that's something that the architect just provided. That's in your packet. They didn't provide us a digital copy at the time until when the packets went out, but they have provided it, and we printed it out for you to take a look at. The proposed elements would be a combination of a very attractive wood fence in the front with signage for the site, and along with a new canopy above the proposed entrance. So it would definitely make the building more attractive. However, that's all that's proposed currently. So we would just ask the applicant to consider if they're going to be indicating anything else, such as whether they're going to paint the actual facade, or if they're proposing any other way to improve the architectural, the aesthetic appeal of the structure. Signage, as I mentioned, they are proposing signage along the fence element, architectural design element in front of the entrance. However, there is currently an existing ground monument sign, so they haven't indicated if that's going to remain, if that's going to be updated, if they're going to at least add the tenant's space to that new sign. So we just would like indication as to what they're proposing. And then finally, you do have the review from our engineer. I will say that the applicant, when we communicated with them and mentioned there was no sheet that clearly indicated what was currently existing and what was being proposed to be removed, they did provide us with that revised sheet. So that's a sheet that's on the screens right now, and that's the sheet that's in your packet. So they were able to provide that, answer some of the concerns that the engineer had. But we would recommend, in the end, we would recommend approval contingent upon the issues I've addressed, that being that the applicant propose, sorry, can't flip my page here. We would recommend the applicant propose, be granted site plan approval contingent upon including a revised parking lot layout, include a proposed parking lot perimeter and drainage plan, indicate the existing and or proposed compliant dumpster location, include a revised landscape plan, includes any proposed revisions that would enhance the building elevations and or the architectural features of the structure, if any are proposed, and if any proposed changes to existing ground monument sign, and then finally to address all issues to the satisfaction of the city engineer. With that, I will take any questions, or we can have the applicant.
Any questions from Roy?
Ooh, I'd like to hear from them.
Want to hear from them first?
Yeah.
Sorry, just a question for Mario. I'm having trouble adding up the proposed parking spaces and the revised parking spaces. See the totals you mentioned?
Yeah. So
I see the carport, but I missed that the first time, but I'm still not getting 84.
Yeah, so when, well, actually, it would be 87, because what will happen is there's 74 on the site currently. They're proposing to remove 1 space in the front and 3 in the rear, so then you get down to 70. They're proposing 29 new ones along the western edge.
Okay.
And one thing I didn't mention actually is that they are proposing 4 spaces along the eastern driveway. On the sheet, in the northeast corner, those 4 spaces are actually new. They aren't existing currently. So 74 minus the 1 minus the 3 plus 29 and plus those 4, you get you 103. And then I'm proposing taking out 1 additional one along that northern lot, reconfiguring the barrier-free parking, which will result most likely in at least 1 space being removed. So that's -2. And then taking out the 14 that are located near the loading zone. So that gets you down to 87, I think. 103 minus 102, 101, 14, 87.
So the 4 on the east side of the building would be parallel to the building?
They are in the very northeast corner. They're right behind the proposed new landscaping.
Oh, I see them up the top,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Those are actually, the hatch indicates that that's the existing hard surface. So
Okay.
because that's clear, that's actually new proposed hard surface.
And that's not enough room for barrier-free for that, so would that just be a regular space?
That one actually is enough space if they wanted to make that just a regular barrier-free space. They could put the van barrier-free space, because you only need 1 for every
Okay.
10, I think, or 25. Well, yeah, thank you, 25. So in that case, but they do have to provide, the first one does have to be van accessible. So the first one would be on wherever they would like to place it, but it would work placing it in that northwest parking lot. And they just need to indicate on that new eastern lot that barrier-free space is quote-unquote regular, an 8-foot space with a 5-foot landing zone.
And is the parking lot, is the entry single flow, or is there?
Not currently and not as proposed. It is actually relatively sufficient, I would think. I'm not an engineer, but based on my visits to the site, it seems like the vehicles can exit both ways. We didn't address that in terms of specifically needing to widen it or to change the configuration to make it one way. I mean, it's definitely possible. I was going to see what I didn't see it addressed, I don't think, in the engineer's letter, so I felt like he didn't, thought it was an issue as well.
Any other questions for Mario?
So as far as on the north elevation where the shrubs are, it's on the left side or the western side of the north portion. How wide is that?
The actual space along the building?
Yes.
I would
12.6
guesstimate
is
about 5
No,
feet. My apologies, I didn't.
No, that's
scale
fine.
that.
Because I was just gauging on the 5.3.
Yeah, that's what I was doing too.
Yeah, okay, so,
So
okay.
it's about 5 feet, I would
Okay.
think. It doesn't exist currently. Is there an unpaved surface along the building, or would you have to saw cut the asphalt to put that landscaping in?
Along that side?
Along the northern edge of the building itself, like,
Where you have the row of shrubs.
or the row of shrubs right there?
No, it's not done. That side is not done.
No, but I mean the actual, in front of the parking. Yeah, is that, I'm not sure, I can't recall if that exists.
But, microphone.
Yeah,
Come up and-
yeah, if you'd like to, actually, since we're on television, if you could please come to the mic, so that way that our audience can hear you.
State who you are, please.
Hi, my name is Rosario Badalamenti, and it's my building. I've never been in front of any kind of people, so I'm not used to this. Okay, you're saying where the 2 entrances are from the West Maple?
No, we're saying along the building line.
On the side.
You have a row of shrubs, there's only 2 there, viburnum and forsythia along the northern side, right, where the parking butts up to the, I wish I had a,
Bill,
Talking to you, are you talking to the?
right at the bottom of the screen, from what you're looking at.
okay,
Ah,
the
look at
bottom of the
this.
screen right there.
There you
If
go.
I have
Top
shrubs,
Oh,
Yeah.
That doesn't reflect there. All right, so where you see, right there,
Bottom edge, yeah.
right there.
Oh, okay, that,
Okay.
yeah, that's the part of the building. The building starts there,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, but how wide is the green space where you're planning on putting the
It's
shrub?
about 3 feet.
3 feet. Okay, and then is it,
About 3 feet.
is it currently paved, or do you have to put
No, there is stones,
stones in there? Okay.
and I can easily put shrubs on it, yes.
Okay. And what's your proposal? Is there going to be bumper blocks?
They're already there.
They're already there?
I just
Okay.
gotta put bushes if you want me to.
Okay, that's why I was just concerned as far as if you've got,
Yeah.
where you've got the shrubs and your parking, if there's not bumper blocks, then those aren't going to
No,
last.
there is.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's interesting.
Can you, how many employees are you planning on moving into this new office
And the
space?
new, how many employees do you have? 4.
Only 4 people? Okay.
Who's there now?
It's vacant.
Oh, it is vacant. So Foam and Moore is no longer there.
I mean, I'm still there, but I don't have to use the front office, so, and I figure I can lease it. That's what I'm doing. I don't use the front office.
Okay, but in the entire building, is there anybody else using the building now?
I am,
That's it? You're
Yes.
Foam and Moore?
yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so then you're just portioning out the northeast portion of the building?
The office, yes. Yeah.
All right.
How many employees do you have?
I think 32 employees, yeah.
Why the need to expand parking then?
I mean, I don't have to. If you want me to, I can. I mean, I'm okay. If I require extra space, I'm willing to do it.
And do you see any problems? Our city planner has given us 7 items here to concern with. Do you see any problems accomplishing these, like the revised parking lot layout, the parking lot perimeter and drainage plan, dumpster location, and the revised landscaping plan? That's almost included here. Do you foresee any problems with the items we're requesting from you?
No?
Item number 6 includes any proposed changes to the existing ground monument sign. Well, that sign, I think is, sorry, Jim's not here, but I think it's conforming at this point in time. It's lowered and it says Foam and More on it.
Yes.
Would that stay just Foam and More, or would this new company's name go onto that sign also?
No, he wants to build his own sign. That's what,
All separate sign from that?
separate sign, yeah. That one, I just use it.
On that elevation, on the pages that we printed out, Mata Automotive, that is essentially their sign right there. It's
Okay.
a pin-mounted wall sign.
So that's not going to be on the monument?
No,
Okay.
So as a city, we don't have any problem with the existing Foam and More sign that's there, the monument sign? Everything's conforming with that? Everything's okay with that? So no change will be
I mean,
made to that?
it's conforming.
How long have you been in the building?
Since 1980. I
1980,
was a kid, yeah.
Well, we all.
Sorry, we were just having a chat offline here. We're confused about the access on the, what is this, the west side?
It's on it's on Maple, so,
Yeah.
but on the, yeah.
The
west side of the
side
building.
closest to Foam and More, it doesn't look like there's access for cars on that side, just from this picture we're pulling off.
No.
Okay, so they are going to be making that.
So if you look again at the television and on your site plan, the hatch lines.
Okay.
Mike?
The hatched lines indicate the existing hard surface. So the lack of hatch, the empty space, that would all be new hard surface as proposed along the west.
So they're going to cut into the property line.
No, that just it's kind of confusing. So this is the sheet that shows the existing conditions. Those X's represent trees that are currently there that would be removed. And in this case, in this sheet, they're actually utilizing the lack of hatch indicate that's lawn area. So technically, right now, that's a lawn area along the west currently. Yeah, I know, sorry for the confusion.
Okay, so you're basically cutting in a driveway, taking out a bunch of trees, and looking to replace them in other places.
I'm not sure of all those
How are they getting in-
trees.
I mean, I'm
They're
looking- we don't see a lot
trees
that-
because they're taller.
Okay.
The conditions
shrubs.
of the existing,
They're pretty established. Can you see this, Glenn? Those are pretty established
There's
trees.
one elm.
yeah, there are two that are very established,
Yeah.
that along, the two that are, well, the group of four.
They're not in the greatest shape as,
No.
as I passed through. So
No.
one was an elm that had it's multi-trunked.
Yes.
One of the trunks was removed for some reason. It's not in the greatest shape. I believe there's another silver maple behind there, also not in the greatest shape. That may be due more to the environment that it's in. Air pollution will have that effect. There's also a ornamental of some type that used to thrive but is no longer. So that probably would need to go anyway. And there may be some other trees in the back that may not have purposely been planted. So, but I mean, they are providing canopy, which is what we're looking for, but at the same time, not necessarily, how should I say, derelict trees. So, does that make any sense?
Yes.
No, it does, but
Makes total sense.
All right.
we're not talking about, did I miss, are we talking about planting new trees?
Yes. So one thing that I noticed is that you have two types of trees, Acer rubrum, and it's actually Pseudotsuga. You're missing a D in that, but anyway. Menziaceae.
Oh, I see.
So that is, I like the height, especially of the Douglas fir. That gets to be
That's an
about.
evergreen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
No, it'd be nice
It's
to
not-
get some of those for once.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, I like that.
I do
The only
too.
question I have is the fact that you've got Acer rubrum, it's not necessarily saying what variety. Those can get up to 40 feet in diameter. So what it looks like, you've got, I can't tell what the dimensions is of that space that you've got, 5 on one side and 6 on the other. That may be, over what I would recommend, but at the same time, was there a design intent as far as placing them in that location? Was there any idea as far as because of the variety, why that was designed that way?
When I got the building, they were there.
Oh, in that location? No, I'm talking about, I'm sorry, in the front, the ones that are proposed.
Oh, no, there isn't nothing there, no.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So right now, it's just it's a
Yes, it's a
berm.
big, yeah.
So we're
yeah.
talking about taking out some scrap junk trees that are probably dying anyways, fixing the whole driveway area and
Yep.
getting their parking set up and taking that whole expansive front
Yep.
and strategically placing more trees, so as we drive down the road, instead of seeing a big ugly lawn
Yep.
and scrubby trees we can't even see, we're
Yep.
now going to see some nice lovely trees and an evergreen and things that are going to come in and we're just going to love it.
But where you've got in the space of maybe 40 square feet, you've got 4 trees that themselves could be 40 feet in diameter and maturity.
We might need
Unless we know what the variety is.
variety of the maple is.
Right, so, that, you see what I'm saying, as far as like, I like the idea, but it may be overkill for that space,
Or pick a variety that grows smaller.
or pick something that's, more narrow, if you want to have that many there.
The hill has got to stay there or can be removed or?
We haven't even addressed that.
Yeah, if you have to.
Well, if you
So
plan on.
can we go back for a sec for trees, because I want to be clear. So Foam and More is staying.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, they're just using the space, it's the same building, but using the space next to it with automotive what? I know.
Office
That
space.
automotive is a giant. Okay, are they building cars or just showing pictures of cars? I don't know what that means.
Hi, I'm a representative of Mata Automotive. I work for them. Mata is a Turkish-based company that makes interior wood and carbon fiber component parts. So they're very high-end, highly engineered parts. They do make parts for GM, Chrysler, Aston Martin, Land Rover, people like that.
So this is office space, not construction
Exactly.
space, or, I'm
It's
sorry,
going to be
whatever
a,
space.
it's going to be a design,
Okay.
engineering, and sales building space.
And how many people you said are
I
going to
think
work there?
so far, well, right now we have 2. We're hopefully going to add 2 more.
So this huge space for a couple people.
Well, no, it's got 4, I think it's got 5 offices.
Oh.
And a
all right,
conference
I
room.
mean,
It's not
you
that
know,
big.
however you want, I just was, it
Yeah.
looks so big, and then you only said 2 people.
No,
and
I
we're
think
talking
you're-
about all this parking. I'm like,
So
what are
they
we?
have foam and more. How much space do you take right now out of 39,000?
28.
Oh.
Okay, it's almost 30. Okay, so you've got 9,000 square feet. So for
No.
your,
Excuse me, the section that
Yeah.
protrudes out
yep,
going towards Maple,
Yep.
that's the office area. That alone is the office area. There's an office on the left side that we're not occupying. We're occupying probably 2/3 of that.
Oh, so there's a third whole space in there that's not, that we're not talking about. You just said there's another office.
no, I think he's saying there's only going to be 2 tenants, right?
Right.
Foam and more and them. But
Them.
as far as,
Right.
Then there's an office it's vacant, which I'm using it. He's using
there's
about
3.
3,000
okay,
square
so hold
feet
on a
of
second.
office.
So here's the partial floor, there it is. Pardon me, I'm trying to read drawings on my phone. It's next to impossible. Right, so,
So if we drew a line across the front where the proposed shrubs
So-
are going from wall to wall, that is the space that you're occupying. Correct.
can you go to Robert McAlpin Architects SK1 page, please?
Sorry.
Her pictures are different than ours, too.
It's the one with the
This is the
MATA
new
sign on it.
The new one.
Yeah.
Oh, SK1.
Oh, yeah, okay. Here it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So just trying to get orientation as far as 11 by 8, the 4 by 7 gate and so on, right, for the existing building. But that's more for, that's a partial floor plan, but I'm confused as far as what I'm looking at.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all the front office is about 4,000 square feet. They
Okay.
occupy about 3,000 square feet.
Okay.
There's 1,000 square feet, it's empty, basically.
Okay.
So that's, the rest of it I occupy it.
So, okay, so you would not use that 1,000 square feet, and that's open for them?
You're just using it.
I'm using it,
Oh,
the
okay,
1,000 square
okay,
feet, they use
okay.
about 3,000 square feet.
Okay.
So you have foam and more, they're 3,000 square feet, and your little 1,000 carve out for yourself?
Yes.
Okay, so that is 3.
Okay.
And they
Well,
have, and
it's-
they have plenty of parking.
It's still
I was
two.
going to say, I mean,
Yeah,
that's an
it's-
astounding amount of parking, because I've been to foam and more, not many people go there.
I have. my
Well, no,
wife
they
has,
go
yeah.
and they buy stuff, I'm not
Yeah.
saying, but it's not like, they need 30 parking spaces during the Christmas season
No,
or
but-
something.
So do you intend on having, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry, sir.
I'm sorry, I want to make a quick comment.
Sure,
on
you
the-
could
on the-
stand up and use the microphone if you can do that and state who you are.
So when I'm looking at the parking, I see, there was another layout you had that had the handicap. Okay, so in front of our building,
Yep.
which is, I want to make sure that there's 3 handicap spots, like right next to where our entrance is.
Okay.
And then there's another handicap spot on the other side.
Yep.
Can't you move those handicaps over? Because it's kind of disproportionate to what we need. Because we're occupying those offices, and it's all handicap. So can you move those to Foreman Moore's side? Because that's where they need them. Because those people are, the main entrance for Foreman Moore's right over there. It's closer to Crooks.
I mean,
I just want
we
to
don't
make sure that
care
we,
about that as much.
Well, then you
That would be,
need barrier-free access from wherever you're going to be placing them, right?
yeah. As long as it meets the ADA requirements and as long as, we don't have a particular care
Right,
of
if
where
they,
they're.
correct. If they wanted, there is
bottom.
the foam and more entrance on the west side of that Maple Road elevation. So if they wanted to, they definitely could. But we're reviewing what was proposed to us, so this is what the configuration they wanted. If they wanted to make that revision, I mean, that'd be fine. But of course, they would have to meet all the dimensional requirements for
Sure.
for the parking.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely possible to move them
So,
over.
okay, so again, it doesn't reflect off of a television screen, but if I'm relatively close, this is the one to the left, and then this is the entrance to the right. So you have the entrance to the right?
You're at the rear, are you at the rear of the building?
No, this is the front of the building. This is West Maple Road, right?
Go up.
Well, I know, I can't,
It
it doesn't
doesn't
show
light
it.
up
It
on the
doesn't,
Oh.
yeah. So I have to show it approximately where it would
So we
be.
don't, because we don't see
So
the
if
maps.
you're
I see
looking
what you're
at,
saying, yeah.
if you're, you know, we're facing Maple, there, the Mata Automotive
here.
entrance is on the right-hand side, and Pullman Moore is on the left-hand side.
Wish I could.
Well, right now,
Can you-
You can't
there's
read
a
it.
one handicap right
Cursor?
there, that's my front door,
I don't have.
right there. It doesn't show on this,
Okay, so we don't have the door on the drawing.
but there's
No.
a big door here and the handicap
And
there.
I'm somewhat surprised myself by the drawings. I'm kind of confused by some of the details on there. And like Glenn said, they're hard to see on a phone, and this is the first time we've seen hard copies of them tonight.
Well, even to that point, I mean, we don't know where the doors are on the building. The breakdown of the interior space, just to help further the conversation, we're already talking about a recommendation for a revised parking lot layout, and I think the question of where handicap parking is something that needs to be addressed outside of this particular conversation, and come back in the form of a revised, certainly a revised parking lot layout. We definitely have a lot of numbers to work, a lot of spaces to work with, it would seem. It's just a question of where these entrances are and how does that, how does that inform any of the decisions related to all of the requirements that we need to maintain?
The addition to that, as far as how are these additional spaces to be lit? What's the, right?
I've seen no lighting on these.
There's a lot of lighting in the front, we put a lot of lighting.
Sure, but you don't have any lighting along where the landscaping is currently, right? And you're proposing to putting in the parking on that side, right? On the west elevation, right?
When you say west east, I came.
Okay, so if you look at West Maple on the top, to the left, where you're planning on putting all the parking spaces.
Oh, you're talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no lights here.
Okay.
No, it's gravel. And, I mean, grass and gravel.
I'm still confused on why you're adding additional parking and taking away green space from a building that, with two tenants, that doesn't even require that much parking.
I mean, we thought we did, but if it didn't, we don't have to touch it.
I mean, I sit here and I could support the idea of a driveway that takes you to the back of the building, outside of the building, but, I mean, to remove all that green space put additional parking in, and it's gonna butt right up against the additional asphalt parking lot. I mean, this just doesn't make sense. You guys don't need the parking. Why would we take away green space and add more asphalt? That's the last thing we need in this world, is more asphalt.
Yeah.
It's getting at is what the hell's going in this.
You need microphone.
You have to speak to
You
the
have to-
microphone, please.
So, okay, so are we driving to the consensus that we don't want the parking spaces?
We don't need additional parking?
Because
Which
it,
makes me happy.
okay.
All right.
How did it come up in the?
But with that being said, I'd like to see an improved landscaping plan on that green
That
space.
Which is fine.
That was,
Yeah,
that
we can
that
do
was
that.
my initial question in terms of the focus, and speaking to the architect, he was mentioning that that's what they wanted to see happen on the site from a marketability standpoint, I believe that's what it was? Is that? No, I represent Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. So when I spoke to the architect, that's when the architect indicated they wanted that.
So what you're saying is they were thinking, well, since we got to do some stuff anyways, let's do this, because if we change a use in the future, we now have all this
Correct.
extra parking and it's already done?
Correct. And in terms, not to jump ahead, but this is going to address some of the things when it comes to our ordinance.
Right, I
Because,
knew
for
that was
example,
part of it.
technically, this is currently legally non-conforming because they technically don't have enough parking spaces based on the size of the building.
Yep.
You know,
In
these.
reality, they don't need any of those
Correct.
because of the use of the building.
Exactly, like how they use, you know, efficiencies now
Right.
for industrial or their operations are much greater than, so the standards might be different. So
then do we need, if we were to go along with our theme of, unless they're adamant, they're trying to do this for future, whatever, and that's a whole
Right.
different topic, but let's pretend that's not what's going on, or that's not it. So if we were to move ahead, do they need and say, you don't need all this parking, we'd rather have you keep green space, do they have to come in front of the ZBA right now?
no, because it would be considered, right now, they're considered legally non-conforming. They
could
existed prior to
maintain
the
the legally
standard.
non-conforming
They would
status.
maintain that status.
Okay.
And, the intent always of these reviews is trying to get them more into compliance.
Right.
However,
But
in this
instance,
case.
compliance isn't
it's
something we
that's not
want because we're
correct.
putting in a cement desert again
Exactly.
instead of green space, and so.
And losing trees, even
and
though they
losing
aren't the
trees.
most
Right, but they
appealing,
could
but they
easily-
provide a great canopy and everything, so that was my first concern.
Question of intent is for future use, and so if
Right.
the company is wanting to take more of this remaining 26,000 square feet and turn that into offices, are we going to get into a situation in the future where there's not sufficient parking? Is that why they're trying to do this now?
He's been there since 1980.
Well, that's
You'd probably be
but
there
they said
another
that
20
they-
years, right?
They said that the reasoning for that was for future marketability, and I can only take that to mean that they want to turn more of this into tenant space.
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
then,
Okay.
that's the answer
So
his
then-
architect provided me, but I'm not sure how much he's communicated with the actual property owner, so.
Well,
Yeah, that's.
essentially, I think we're hearing up here is that we'd rather see the green space kept, we'd rather not put in a bunch of I mean, you do need to do the ADA stuff and make sure that's in compliance, whatever, but we'd rather see them keep the green space, and then as we move forward as a body with looking at the ordinances, we look at some of the ways that we word this, it says, so many spaces per square foot, or based on use, or however we change that to
Right.
reflect.
There will be the ways to address that in our ordinance
Yeah.
in the future.
But I'm not excited about throwing in a bunch more parking they don't need and taking out green space.
For another
even-
heat sink, no?
Yeah.
So, just for clarification for my sake, so are you the building owner?
Yes.
You are, okay, thank you.
And you are the tenants, proposed tenants.
Proposed tenants.
And you're just hanging out.
So as far as the type of business that's coming in, are we considering it to be similar to what's existing with Foam and More, or because it's more sales and design that it's not?
It is not similar. It does fit within the BRD2 standards.
Okay.
The high tech, the automotive,
Okay.
sales, the office, that
The
kind of
use
stuff.
fits.
The uses, it works.
So right now, as far as the handicap spacing, if they came in, they'd still need to meet ADA requirements, is that?
That is correct.
Correct, yeah. And they're going to have to meet those. They can move the spots wherever they're comfortable with, but that has to be met. So it sounds like we're going to do away with the additional parking and the pavement on it. I would prefer to see another drawing before I went further with approval on this. Are you strapped for time for any reason, or?
Well, he wants occupy the space. Right now, he's not in it. He wants occupy the space temporary if there
If we
is.
take out the parking, in the ADA, we can't, I mean, that's, has to be done. But if we take out some of the parking we were talking about, what does that leave us with?
Landscaping.
And lighting as far as.
And lighting.
I don't wanna
If they
decide
put
that.
well, do they need additional lighting if they maintain?
Or at least need a site plan that reflects the lighting.
Oh, I agree with that,
Yeah.
absolutely. But if they're not putting in the parking lot, they don't need to worry about lighting, or do they, on that side?
Well, that would be an instance where we would like to see that aspect of the site come into more compliance.
So,
So having lighting that would be screened, downward directed, but providing a safer environment. I mean, but we don't know what that will involve until we see it on the revised site.
Do we
plan.
know what the lighting is on the building next door, and what is the building next door?
To the east or the west?
To the west?
To the west is another office user. It's a pretty nice site, actually. They have very nice landscaping in front of them. I haven't been there at night, so I don't know what the lighting situation is.
In order to not hold them up, can we temporarily allow them to move in to their office space? And then I'd like to see plans drawn up again, and let's not approve a site plan this evening. Let's get more detailed plans to look at. I don't know how you guys feel, but
No, I was going to say, I mean, has
Like
the
to
lease
see
been
more.
executed already?
Yes, the lease,
So
yeah.
you're waiting on this. This is going to take at least another month,
Yeah, and they want to
and they
move
want to
in.
get going, right?
Yeah.
yeah, so is there any reason we can't allow them to move in temporarily and not approve the site plan at this point?
I don't know if they've got, I don't think that you've submitted any interior building plans, correct, at this point? So, I mean,
So you still got to jump through the building
you
department.
still got to jump through the building hoops. I don't know if, we can, I mean, we can do it concurrently. You know, I mean, they can certainly submit their building plans and Jim can review those as the architect is revising these plans. You know, in the past, when we've come up with these situations, Jim has allowed, you know, interior demo to start occurring, so that at least that portion is done. And he has set, you know, he'll upon review of any interior building plans, you know, if those are done before site plan approval is obtained, I mean, he'll issue a building permit, but he'll put a big fat disclaimer on it saying that, you know, basically work at your own risk.
Right.
So,
Do they
I
have
mean,
demo plans?
we don't require interior demo plans unless they're like ripping down.
Well, no, I know, but
like
you just
full
said he lets
walls.
them get in there, and I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, as long as
do they
they're-
have that kind of work to do, or are they just moving in and putting their butts in seats and calling it good? What are we talking?
Can I say something? Yeah, the office, what we did is we just kind of clean it, paint it.
So it's
You know,
pretty much
everything
ready.
is ready to move because everything was done.
That's
so-
different than now we have to
Yeah,
do
we
some
don't
big
have to-
internal
yeah.
process that's going to take time. They don't
Right.
have anything that's going to take time.
Okay, so that shouldn't hold them up.
So Jim
They
could just do
should-
the
they can move
walkthrough,
along.
right?
So Jim could do a TCO inspection. I mean, but then that also puts us to, well, do we want them to?
Can we see new drawings within next meeting, 2 weeks? Can we see more?
Is that feasible?
Yeah.
Can you get
More detailed drawings?
detailed landscape
The way it's-
plans? I mean,
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
certainly say,
We'll scratch out the parking that was.
But he still needs to-
Yeah, do the parking the way they want it, as long as it meets ADA standards, because he said, you know, as he was explaining their concerns earlier about where it is, meet their ADA standards, let's not add a bunch of parking we don't have to, which should make
Correct.
this simpler, get the lighting up, make sure, well, the sign thing, whatever, and then we're good.
But we would still need bids for the work, and we would still need timelines, right, for the TCO?
yeah, and we need, I mean, you know, you guys typically require a bond for TCOs, so, you know,
We
it's-
just made this cheaper.
You know, I mean, the reality is there's a high likelihood that they're going to need to bond out for the parking, whatever they do to the parking lot.
Because that's not happening in the
Because
time they
that's not,
want to
I
move
mean, yeah,
in.
that's,
right?
Unless you are a magic man, Russ, you're not going to get a concrete. You know, you're not going to. It's going to be difficult to get those contractors in place.
So none of us are interested in making them wait until all that's done, so we
Right.
might as well do either
You guys
the
can
temporary,
certainly say,
with the bond.
you know, bond it out and.
I'd like to leave it up to Jim's discretion
As
as.
far
a
as
building-
volume, or what? Because I don't
As
think he's
far-
going to be able to
for
get,
what?
he's not going to be able to get bids in 2 weeks.
Oh, he can likely get bids, but it's going to be difficult especially for just the parking lot work. Landscaping, that's a different story. I think I mean, they're busy right now and they're going to start picking up, but you know, that's still something that can be installed. I think the parking lot work is going to be,
It's going to take
or,
time.
I mean, realistically, that's probably going to be in the spring. So,
So in which case we'd ask for a bond,
yeah, we would ask for a
cover
bond
the-
for that.
needed work.
So,
I just want to make sure that the applicants know that's a heavy lift in 2 weeks. So we're happy to do it, we're happy to consider it and move it forward, but also work with city staff so that you know what we mean by the temporary C of O and what those conditions would be.
Well, Jim cannot give them a temporary CFO, only this board.
yeah,
can
you have
issue
to
a temporary
authorize Jim to
CFO.
issue the TCO.
We wouldn't even know where to start with a bond, because we have no bids or anything and
Well, the
especially since.
bond is going to be contingent on the site plan approval, so
Okay.
I'm leaning towards,
mean-
let's consider getting them a short-term temporary CFO so that they can get in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's give them a 30-day
Okay.
temporary
And then
CLO,
we'll look
and
at-
then we'll reevaluate it.
Yeah.
You're saying.
I think this is a topic for an open discussion, but I think we need to have a conversation about this bond thing, but
Right.
we'll go from there.
Yeah, and then we can look at new drawings at that point in time before we give them we'll ask for a bond at that point for the.
But doesn't Jim have to still do the walkthrough for safety?
He
Oh,
still has to do a walkthrough, but I mean, because whatever you guys do, you're only authorizing him to issue the TCO. It's
Right.
still, every building he still has to do his walkthrough to make sure that the building itself is safe. So, I mean, I certainly think that, we've got our meeting on the 11th, and then we've got our meeting on the 25th in September, and I certainly think that, I mean, if they can make the 11th, by all means, try and hold it to them. I think, we kind of go down that slippery slope when we say, we'll let you in, and we're not doing the bond. So,
Well, as long as we're clear that we can kick them back out if they don't do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think Jim's going to walk through the space. If he determines the space is safe and he issues the TCO, and we put a limited time frame on it at 30 days, I mean, we're going to have to extend the TCO because we're going to start falling into the winter months, and he's not going to be able to do some of these improvements. So
Right.
it's probably going to be a 9-month TCO,
Well, yeah, the TCO would
It's
be
gonna
there.
a staged TCO.
probably, something like
So
that.
X has to happen by this date, and the rest of it can
But-
happen by this.
Now-
Theoretically, within that 30 days, they could come in here with the proper paperwork and convince us of what's going on, and we could issue a site plan approval at that point in time.
Sure, but it's still going to be a TCO, though.
Right.
Yeah, and probably have to extend it then.
So we
Exactly.
would know more at a later point then.
well, and like in terms of the bond, I mean, think about what we did for Discount Fabric, right? When Discount Fabric moved from when they moved from the new House of Optical Space down to their new location by the high rise, I mean, we also had similar concerns. The parking lot layout needed to be revised significantly. Their plans weren't ready, basically, is what it came down to. And we asked for a good faith bond of $5,000, right? So
That's for what they were doing, which didn't include landscape, or did it? I don't recall.
it did include landscaping. They had, their
one tree?
landscaping plan was
Oh, wait, they had
more
the, oh, I
complete. It
remember
was
now.
it was more the parking
yeah.
lot layout that
They had
needed
the-
to be changed. So
Yeah, they had the
I mean,
perennials in the back, that's right.
But they had a similar, the similarity is in that their tenant needed to move in and get occupancy as soon as possible, which is,
But
you know,
didn't we then have to fight with the landlord for another, I don't know how many
he did have,
meetings?
he
Because
did,
he
we
didn't
did,
do what
no,
he was
we didn't
supposed
have to
to?
fight with him too.
Not
We didn't
those
have-
guys.
he was pretty good.
Okay. Am I thinking of something else?
I mean, we ended up needing additional bond money, but that was just because of the nature of that particular project. But, so if we, want to maintain, a little bit more adherence to our policies,
Consistency.
we could ask for, you guys could set a smaller bond amount as, good faith that yes, we're still going to work with you, but we're going to require you to,
Would you have a
Stay on top
problem
of
with what I'm proposing here? I'm going to have a motion made on it, but if you can come back to us with new drawings with more detail that we can look at.
That's what we're gonna do.
But
Yeah,
being
that's the
business,
first thing.
being business friendly, I'd like to get these guys in there as soon as we could. So if we can, we'll try to get a temporary to get them moved in. But that's going to be definitely temporary. It's not a full-time thing.
There's any way that you can have the fire marshal go through the inside the building just in
he
case?
will go at the
He
same
will.
time.
It's a safe, yeah.
He
Yeah.
will do that, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So, okay, so what I gotta do is I gotta just call the architect and
Yeah.
do the drawing, whatever you request, yeah?
Hopefully you can make it back within 2 weeks.
Okay.
Otherwise, we meet every.
I think
2
we
weeks.
should set a date
Set-
for them to
Set a date.
target.
Hard date?
A hard date, yes, please.
We're asking for them to agree to a bond tonight, right? That's
Good faith bond? Is that what you
I
said?
think a good
No.
faith bond would be, I mean, if we're gonna, if you guys are gonna authorize Jim to
We need
issue
to
a
have TCO
TCO, I
money on
think
it.
that
Oh, I see your
you
point.
should adhere to the policy that you've
Yep.
set, which says authorize the TCO and require a bond if,
It's going to be
So I
difficult
think
to.
you guys should do a good faith, like a
It's gonna be
good faith
hard
amount.
to
It doesn't necessarily
establish a
need to be
price,
anything
though.
high.
So what do they have to do? They have to repaint, or they actually have to put in asphalt in 30 days? Well, I mean, as far as getting them in and what we were looking for the project, they need to rearrange the,
They need a new parking lot layout, they need a revised landscaping plan, and they need to show their lighting.
but as far as structurally for the parking lot,
Structurally for the parking lot, They're
If they're not-
definitely going to need to restripe it.
Okay, they're not gonna, you're not gonna have to put anything new as far as,
And they are actually going to be required to, I mean, per AEW's letter, they are required to submit for engineering plan review. So, and I'm sure that's based upon the additional parking that's that they were proposing. So, that's going to change what engineering says. I mean, they definitely, my guess is that they're probably going to have to stripe and seal the parking lot
Well,
at the bare minimum,
and then landscaping.
and then landscaping.
The 4 new spots in the northeast
So
corner.
how many trees are they got there?
That's currently grass, right?
Looks like 11 trees,
Not trees, about $200 per.
11 trees, 31 some shrubs.
Say 2,500 for the landscaping. Just to be on the safe side.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
And what about this new parking? Although it's not going in within the TCO, we need to keep that,
Yeah.
we need to address that.
So, I don't know, what's restriping cost?
It's not
$1,000?
restriping. No, this is currently grass.
No, I know, we're not, yeah, we're gonna say that they're not changing that, right?
No, they are.
No, but we're saying they don't have to.
They don't have to.
Not within the 30 days, but the bond will carry over within the new TCO. So we're setting a good faith amount of the
Yeah.
larger bond. So all the work, if I'm understanding it, stays the same. We're just saying they don't have to give the full amount of the bond until we have the next meeting and go over the new drawings.
Yeah.
But I thought we said the work wasn't staying the same because we were telling them they didn't have to do the parking.
Yeah, they're not doing the west side, right?
I'm not talking about the west, I'm talking about
Talking
the
about the
northeast,
northeast.
the
Oh,
4
okay.
spots at
Okay.
the top.
Oh, those have to, oh, those aren't there. That's what I was
They're not
asking.
currently
Okay, so
there.
you do have to put in asphalt there.
I mean, I don't have to, if you don't want, I mean. You want to?
Where are they going to
Okay,
park?
he
See a new
wants.
plan.
Yeah, that's not for us to,
This
you
is
guys.
really gonna be confusing because everything's
He wants
different.
it.
Agreed.
We need to see a new plan.
Yeah,
Why don't we
need a
just
new plan.
say, do a $5,000
Okay,
bond?
5,000.
Because if they need to increase the bond, which they likely will, I mean, they can get to that point. But right now, this will get them to whichever meeting in September you say you want them at.
Yeah, the bond can be adjusted at some point in time if they come in with set prices.
Which we'll then have to redo at the
Revise them.
new TCO, which
Yes.
will expire in 30 days.
Right.
Okay. All right, so what's the date?
Sound like a plan?
Today is the 28th.
So what's the 25th, you said?
Today's the 20
Our next meeting?
Our next meeting is September 11th and then September 25th.
Okay. So they need to come back with a revised plan by September 11th?
In order to get on that 25th, right? Or we need it 2 weeks in advance, right? Or a
We
week?
can get them on the 11th.
My notes are all
I mean,
scratched.
our internal deadline has passed for that date, but we can do that if that's what you decide. Otherwise, we can put them on the 25th.
I'd rather
no
push
problem.
it to the 25th, to be honest with you, because I would rather see a well-thought-out plan
Okay.
from the architect than something rushed. I'd rather see a well-thought-out landscape plan for this, and, obviously, they want their 4 spots next to their space, so, we're going to issue a 30-day TCO. The 25th is inside that 30 days. I mean, we can make the decision then. Let's give them the time to get a better design plan here.
So we need
Okay.
a revised drawing submitted to city staff by what date?
You're looking 2 weeks out.
Well, that's not a lot of time.
No, it's not to have everything done.
We're going to have to.
Technically, all right, so
That's pretty tight, that's
the
pretty tight.
the bare minimum would be the 13th. Actually, the 12th. The 12th, just because we got to do packets and
That's
it's
the
a
day
hassle.
that's the day after our meeting.
That is the day after
He's
your
asking
meeting.
about the 24th.
Right, so you're
In
moving
order to
on,
meet for the,
moving on to the
Can't be
25th.
giving them any
So,
time.
wait a minute, though. We're gonna allow them to get it on the 11th, right?
Well, if we wanted them on the 11th, I mean, they would have to submit it like Thursday. But,
Well,
so, say the 25th, and they got to submit by the 12th.
Okay, well, at least it's more time we're giving them on the 11th then, so.
24 hours. How's this sound go?
Okay, does anyone here see any problems with allowing a temporary certificate of occupancy with these problems still outstanding? Personally, I don't see any problem with it.
No, I don't, as long as we have a bond attached to
Yeah.
it,
Okay, you can make sure the bond's attached to the temporary,
to the 30-day TCO.
not
right?
just the site plan approval.
No, well, I mean, we'll have to revisit that at that point in
They're
time.
not, yeah, you're not giving them site plan approval tonight.
Right,
You're-
well, yes, obviously, yes.
right.
So, but as far as, if we're giving a TCO, right, we want money attached to it. right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So-
Sir, I want to ask you a quick question. What's your bonding capabilities? Do you know?
You mean the amount? Oh,
What's your ability to bond right now?
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Nor do I expect you to know that question. So it's going to lead up to a open discussion leading into tonight, but I just asked that question, so.
Okay.
Want to make a motion?
Well, as far as, okay, so we're agreeing to, just so I understand, what we're coming up with TCO of 30 days. Oh, I might as well make it, and you guys can adjust it how you feel. September 25th, okay. I'll make a motion that 1177 West Maple, that we grant a 30-day temporary certificate of occupancy with a bond of $5,000, which will be in parallel with approval of building management inspection and fire inspection. And that we expect, no, you will have a revised drawing submitted to city staff by September 12th with a scheduled reappearance before this committee for the revised drawing on September 25th, at which time we will review for site plan approval and also review for possible extension of a TCO with bond.
Any other comments?
Microphone.
Microphone, please.
Hi, my name is Rob McAlpin. I'm the architect for MATA. And they asked me to basically design a canopy. So that's why I didn't include any of the interior drawings, because I didn't really go in the space itself. So my drawing within your packet is to look for site plan approval for the wall and the canopy, which gets tied into the landlord's scope. You look puzzled.
I am. Are you asking for some kind of separate consideration?
Well, we were trying to get the wall moving, yes.
I think that you can probably get I believe when Ed and I talked, you guys have to get that manufacturing ball rolling, correct? Yeah, so I think this will still give you, I think, the authority to go ahead with getting that wall manufactured.
So it does ask the question, though, is the wall out of line?
There's not I think what you're asking is there a separate approval process? There's not a separate approval process for the components of the one plan, but what Susie's saying is that we're allowing you to move forward with your plans, and then we will revisit that at the meeting on the 25th for full site approval.
Yeah, I'm not concerned because that's not one of the things that they're concerned with right now, right? I mean, landscaping, and parking, and lighting, and that's not anywhere near where that wall and sign is going to happen.
Unless you're having something to do with the exterior wall.
Well, that's just it, just that exterior wall
Yeah.
with the canopies. The only scope that I am, part of.
So we do need to see revised drawings. Because I guess I'm trying to understand as far as how it relates to the overall building. I see that you've got concrete into the ground with footing and so forth, but as far as that's just on this sheet, right? I don't see, on here, it doesn't give us a good representation as far as how it all fits in, right? So we're looking at two different drawings and
Yes.
saying this is the same project, and we can't.
Well, one is a tenant space.
Sure, oh yeah, I get it.
Right.
But you're doing something to the building,
Yes.
right? Which needs that their architect needs to have that incorporated, right? Which we don't have right now.
I understand.
Okay. So that's our expectation, that it's all comprehensive. Right?
Well, the good news is you can go to work
Well, based on building approval.
upon inspection.
Yes, Mr. Elvis will tell you if you're doing something wrong.
Okay, so
Is that your motion?
that's my motion unless somebody wants to amend it.
Anybody want to amend it, change it, support it, second it?
Support. It makes sense. I understand it.
Okay, I have a motion.
It's convoluted, isn't it?
I have a motion, and I have support. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Audia?
Yes.
Ms. Fenton?
Yes?
Motion passed.
So just for clarity for the applicants, when you post the bond, it's accepted by the city, that'll trigger Jim to come out and do the walkthrough, then you'll be granted the temporary C of O. Okay? And then we will have the full discussion of the site plan at the meeting on the 25th of September.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 6. This is public discussion, items not on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will close public discussion.
Thank you.
Under new business, I was in error last time, at the last meeting. I should have read this letter. I have a letter here from our city attorney, John Kingsep, and I told him I was going to read it into the minutes, and I inadvertently forgot. So
You got a letter from the city attorney
Yes.
that didn't go to the rest of the commissioners?
yes, he sent it to me to read at the last planning commission meeting, and I inadvertently didn't. It'll be self-explanatory. This is old news at this point in time because other things have changed. I just like to read this into the record, though, if you bear with me. It's a Kingsep report to the Planning Commission on the parking issues. You may recall approximately 6 weeks ago during the hearing on the Tavern on the Main, I addressed the Planning Commission on the larger problem of lack of parking on Main Street in the locations of Tavern on the Main and the Woodpile Barbecue. That also involved issues of parking in the residential area. After the meeting, I met with the owner of the Tavern on the Main and their legal counsel and others to discuss the problems and the issues. After that meeting, the administration had met with the representative of the church, the Clawson Church, and the owner of Woodpile Barbecue to address the use of the church parking lot for excess parking. A further development that came to my attention recently was notification of issues on East 14 Mile Road, which involves the House of Optics, Big B's, and Oldport. I obtained a title search on the church property and found significant issues existing that question the authority of the church to enter any agreement with the city. That does not mean there are no alternatives. It's just another issue. At the last meeting of the City Council, and at my request, I received authority from council to work with the city manager in a more in-depth study of the issue of parking and embark upon meetings with interested parties. The goal is to get the information, identify immediate issues, and look at long and short-term solutions. Once done, a report will be provided to the council as well as to the Planning Commission. At your meeting 6 weeks ago, I suggested a time frame to report, and this report complies with that commitment. As I am on vacation, I hope this report suffices. Upon my return, the matter will be proceeded with meetings next week to internally develop the outline and to establish several meetings with interested parties. Council and the Planning Commission will be advised of progress. In the interim, I recommend that any business coming before you concerning the city center area be thoroughly scrutinized regarding the impact of parking so we can begin to get an idea of how futile, or how the future will look on this issue in that area, John King said. Like I said, this is a,
Can I get that, and we'll go make a copy of it right now so that we can all have that, because that's also not something that he provided to staff. So that's a problem, right?
No, no
So can
problem.
I make a quick copy?
Were you involved in any of the discussions?
Yes,
yeah, like I said, this is not,
sort of. I've got an
it's not
update.
current news. This is a problem.
copy.
So this was how, what was the date?
There's no date on
There's
this.
no date on it.
Wait, rulers.
I received it before our last meeting, so it's at least 3 weeks old, probably.
Okay.
So it's fairly old news, but what the point is, it's something we have to look at. We're going to end up having parking problems here in this city, you know, as we noticed with Woodpile, and we got to figure out how to work this thing out. Well, luckily, tonight, this guy has plenty of parking for his place. Unless he started building cars there, he'd run out of space, but we have to be careful on where we're going, and council asked him to see if he can step in and work out something. There's talk about the Church of Clawson using some of their parking spots for
No, actually, that
public
was an idea
parking.
that was floated by staff months ago. So city council didn't just make that up and magically come up with that at the last meeting. That's been going on for a long time. I'm sorry, I'm a little upset that there's this bombshell dropped in the middle of a meeting that no one's aware of and this stuff. No.
What bombshell are you speaking of?
That entire email.
Entire email.
That entire email. We actually met with, staff met with a member, we met with a representative of the
Tavern.
Church of Clawson, and we met with a representative of Woodpile to discuss the parking issues that are existing in that area. We have discussed how, what sort of partnerships this may entail. Is it a partnership solely between Woodpile and the Church of Clawson? When we originally discussed it, it was an idea to be more of a three-party partnership with the city being involved, because the church wants to be they want to be a good citizen, community partners. They already are, quite frankly. They allow the Boy Scouts to use their space. They open it up during the, They open it up to the car show, allow everyone, the public to use their space. So they want to be a good community partner. They're also only there for a limited amount of time on Sundays and
Thanks, Mike.
Wednesdays, right? And clearly, with the amount of activity that we're having in the city,
Thank you, Maria.
there is going to be a need, especially as we move forward, for additional parking. So the thought has been, this would be a good spot for municipal parking when the church is not using it. Ensure that Woodpile sends their employees down there, actively promotes that as additional overflow parking. Now, there is going to be on-street parking created down there as a result of Royal Oak is narrowing their section of Main Street to accommodate bike lanes, and so we are going to be, engineering is going to be facilitating the restriping and addition of 35 on-street spaces to make our roads match up. So we do have additional parking coming that way.
We'll have bike lanes too.
No, we will not have bike
We
lanes.
haven't figured out what
No,
to do with
we
the bike shed.
do not want bike lanes.
We'll get at least 30-some parking spaces on street, which will
Fine.
alleviate some of the parking problem.
Clear, I was understanding
Yeah,
what she was saying.
But-
it's certainly not going to alleviate all of them, but,
Right.
every little parking space kind of helps, right?
But I think there's
So-
difficulties in working in an arrangement between the church and the city as to using it as considering it a public parking space. I'm not sure how that's going to play out.
I'm not entirely sure why the city
And
attorney
personally, I don't think I would
believes-
park at the old American Legion where the church is and walk to Woodpile
That's a good-
for my dinner. I don't,
That's a good distance.
it's
Oh, it's a block.
Yeah.
It is one block
Well, I mean, it's-
from the church to Woodpile, and quite frankly, I've eaten at Woodpile, and let me tell you, I could use a little block to walk off some of that delicious food, okay?
What I'm
So
curious about is why the property across the street wasn't considered, and also why isn't that crossing for Walper and Charlevoix also considered in being a permanent crosswalk, as opposed to the temporary, I'm sorry, I'm going to refrain from saying what I think of it, right? Because that's much closer, that is more parking, in my opinion, that could be possibly used for that purpose.
I don't disagree that that lot would also be an alternative for our parking solutions. There is no effective crossing, right?
Yep.
So there's no, I mean, that is part of the problem, is that there's, the crossing at Walper needs to be improved. I mean,
'Cause right
that's, I
now,
mean, that's just all it comes down to. It just needs to be improved.
But are we?
That lot is that lot is currently owned by Mahmoud's. That site, while we do have plans for review right now, and expect to see those in September, that there is no site plan for that. There has not been, up until they submitted this most recent set of plans, there's not been a lot of movement towards focusing on that site for them.
I'm sorry, are you talking about the brownfield right next to Woodpile? Or are you talking about?
No, that's
that
two.
site is also owned by them. But Glenn is talking about the property
But you
across
make
the
a good
street.
point, that field could also be, there used to be a curb cut there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes, there it
because
is.
there used to be a home there.
The empty, yeah, there was a house there at one
Yeah,
point.
there used to be a curb cut, and then when we did the street, that was taken away.
Yeah, in a perfect world, Woodpile would buy that lot and pave it, throw a couple trees in it, and
Yeah, they also didn't expect the type of business that they
Life would
had.
be good.
Or neither did we. Right.
so-
The church is, but we're getting somewhat distracted. The church is, I mean, they've been in that space for approximately 3 years, give or take. They have applied now for site plan approval. They are on their third application for site plan approval. And they are waiting, we have been waiting to bring them for site plan approval until discussions have been had with them. And so they're ready to go. Finding a way to find a partnership within that will also help them in the long run make the improvements to their site. So they're pretty much ready to go.
So are
Site,
they
right?
using that as a bargaining chip as far as their site plan?
No, I
Okay.
I wouldn't say they're using it as a bargaining chip, but we have said, what are we gonna do? Because any sort of agreement that the city may make with them, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and spout out the different ideas of what the city could or couldn't do, because it's not my authority.
Yeah, and
really,
quite honestly,
but-
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because this is wasting my time at this point until we have a
So-
better idea of what's going on.
We've
Yeah,
met
I
with,
only
well, let
wanted
me
that read
go
in
back to
just
this though.
that
So
there
we
is
met
something
with
going
them.
on.
And, Woodpile is, they want to work on a solution. The church wants to work on a solution. Council had directed administration to find a solution. And so we had, come up with this idea that the three of us would work together. John's letter here that was sent to Greg, and that is, they've since come back and told administration that they don't want the city involved in coming up with the solution.
Who's the they? That they don't, the partners don't want the city involved in coming up with a solution? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand.
City council has decided that they do not want the city involved in coming up with whatever partnership solution there may be. We have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with the Church of Clawson. It'll be myself and John and the city manager. And we have a meeting scheduled on Thursday with myself and John and the city manager and a representative of Woodpile. So, we'll keep you posted on what exactly happens. You know, I don't know why we're not all meeting together, but I was merely asked to.
Pardon my outburst. I'd like to see something that's tangible, that makes some sense, because I don't know, just hearing all this, it's not. So,
Yeah.
Okay. I want to thank Mr. Elbis for the list of certificate of occupancy lists that he provided with all of us. I'm sure there are more places.
I have more. I'm not done.
Okay.
I was looking through my list because, yes, I agree. There feels like there should be more.
Yeah.
And you know what? I didn't find that many more. So we do have Mike Savoy has a temporary certificate of occupancy, but that is to use the site only. So that's not, so I don't know if that would have showed up on here, right? Because that's not a building. I mean, there is a building there, but the TCO is not for him to use the building. It is for him to use the back portion of the parking lot.
they're making
So I don't-
property improvements on that drainage.
Yes, they just got all of their permission, they got all their permits from the Oakland County Road Commission, from engineering, from everybody they needed. And so they started doing work last week. They are, I expect to see work happening very quickly. They've also submitted their interior building plans as a slight aside, and those are under review now, so that's going to be beautiful. They've got like almost $3 million that they're planning to put into this. So that's another TCO that's not on here. Also, all right, so the new House of Optical site, it seems like they should have a TCO, but they actually have a full C of O, even though they have a significant amount of site work to be done. It was determined that there is, they're part of the shared parking agreement over there, and there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done between all of the partners. So, based on the recommendation of the city attorney, we said, all right.
Well, the reason I asked for this list is that this board is the only board that can offer a temporary certificate of occupancy, and when we offer one up for 30, 60 days, after 30, 60 days, I'd like to know what's happened after that point. Why are they not back in front of us? Have they complied with everything that they needed? And apparently some of these do. They comply with.
So the only one, all right,
Need.
so the, let's see, Discount Fabric, we need to follow up with him again. The ones that Jim has in the parentheses there, under one development,
Clawson
157, yeah, Clawson CrossFit. So they have also been working through approval. I mean, they need to come back for us and extend their TCO. However, they just got their approvals as well from Oakland County Road Commission earlier this week. So I would expect their site work to be happening very soon. So we need to follow up with them about extending the TCO. As far as traffic, so Noble Appliance, they're in compliance. Traffic Digital Agency, they're actually, they just need to be issued a full C of O. They are in compliance. Their site plan did have 3 trees that were supposed to go in the public right away on Jefferson. However, when they went out to field locate with them, they discovered that there is actually a 4-inch medium pressure gas line under, like directly under that little space there. So DPW amended their response and said no.
Question,
Yes.
is that not supposed to be on the site plan?
Yeah.
Should have been.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we can't be telling people to plant trees over gas lines.
No, but that would have said, okay, you can't put them there, put them
Right.
here.
Yeah.
Right?
But there also would not have been another location for trees to go on that site. So
Wow, I disagree. I think in front.
there's quite a few trees out there, or quite a bit of
You
landscaping
can
out
still
there
put more
already.
trees in there, just because we've got these god-awful locusts out in front, and why can't they put other ones in there? But anyway, okay.
Haberman's, I can't remember if we said the end of June. We must have, but, because he came back that one time to ask for an extension.
Yeah.
So, I'm pretty sure he just needs to final it out, but he's always been really, really good about,
I mean,
coming back to us and
I
being
can go
communicative.
back through paperwork I have at home and look online and find out when we issued temporary CFOs, how long it was good for, and when it expired. But that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping for a running list to tell me that.
I think we're good though.
I
Like
know
as I was looking, like I said, I was looking through my spreadsheet of all the different projects that we have. Everybody else has gotten, full C of O at this point. So, I mean, we'll go back and double check. But the only other two, or the only other real one that I found was Savoy. But like I said, that's just for the site itself.
What about, I forget the name of the center, but Laundry Palace, Pure Balance, or Pure Massage? He was supposed to come back. We never even considered that, did we?
Yes, you guys considered that they got site plan approval, I want to say it was March.
But it was contingent, I mean, it wasn't done.
No, it was not,
So they should still be on a temporary C of O.
but they already all had CFOs in the first place. They were all operating.
We didn't issue them temporary. We just haven't approved their plans, though, because their signage, I think, is still not conforming.
They need to bring back their sign package. But they didn't, they were all operating with full CFOs.
Do we have a bond on them? Do you know?
I don't remember.
It'd be interesting to look at
PCO
that.
effective upon obtaining of necessary security for project completion in the amount of $27,000 in satisfaction of building, and I can't even read my own writing, with project completion by May 31st.
Does that mean we're
Sweet,
holding
so they're
money?
expired, huh?
That's as March 13th.
Does that mean we have the money, or we requested the money and we don't know if we have it or not, or?
This is just,
I'll check.
yeah, that needs,
Yeah, if you
It was
could,
20.
Well, that's a question actually on this list. Would they make this list, Susie, if they never submitted the bond? Or this reflects like people who have submitted the bond, and this is just based on the kind of the search. I mean, that's an interesting question of like what could fall through the cracks.
So this is a list that's been created through the building department's portion of BS&A. So if there was, and admittedly, I mean, we're still like, we've got some growing pains on our report drawing, right? Because the guy that usually does it is on paternity leave, so we're still kind of figuring some stuff out on our own, right? But so this was created through the building department. As far as I know, the building department does not have we don't have access to, the treasurer's BS&A program. So if there was an instance where someone submitted the bond but not somehow the paperwork, then yes, that would fall through, or,
Something like that.
something like that. So we'll have to refine our report parameters.
A few months ago, we were talking about a lady that just opened up shop, never applied for a TCO, a C of O, or nothing.
Yeah.
How are we tracking that?
She's being fined. I mean, it's happening, right? I mean, is it being tracked? Not in a report like this.
I thought she put the trees in. I thought she was missing some bumper blocks.
well, it was in the right of way. We put
She's
the trees in the right of way.
missing. She needs to do her ADA ramp from her parking lot.
Yeah, it was a handicap ramp and some bumper blocks up against the rear wall, I think, that haven't been installed.
Yeah, she emailed Jim
So it's kind
a
of
couple weeks
frustrating.
ago
We
asking to have
request
that waived.
these things and they don't follow through.
So going back to the 116 to 140 South Main, so I'm also looking at sign with compliance. Signage style shall be channel letter mounted to face a building with sunset of non-conforming sign to be replaced with conforming sign by March 31st.
March or
31st.
May?
March.
I thought you were.
No, March 31st. I don't think there's,
They've not been in front of us again.
No,
No.
so
Nope.
call them back.
I think
so
he
again,
also
I
had-
just review what I have for my notes.
Anything else
See.
on
what else?
business?
Speaking of trees and the church, Clawson, we are gonna be, we're off in our timing, but, we're installing our trees from our grant. So they're gonna get 7 in front of the church. There was a question about, last week, you brought up Chairman Kucera, you brought up the mural for Motor City Barbell.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that
Yeah,
Motor City
that's
Barbell and
inside.
Fitness. I see now that they're moving.
Yes, okay, so,
Is that an exterior wall they're moving into?
so they are, well, first, the mural that they were asking for help on, that's inside. Second of all, they are planning to move to 844 West 14 Mile. That's one of the old tool and die shops. I'm sure if you've been driving on 14 Mile, you've noticed that one has been painted black, one's like a really dark navy blue, and they've been replacing the windows and so they're moving into 844 as soon as they possibly can. There is no site plan. I've talked to the property owner several times, and I've brought this up to the development team. There's actually nothing that can be done physically on the site, with the exception of a parking lot. There is, right now, it's just gravel, and it needs work, right? So after much discussion internally, we are going to negotiate a development agreement with the property owner. Because as we recognized earlier today, anything that has anything to do with concrete and parking lots isn't going to happen this year. So we're going to enter into a development agreement with him that's going to get us a brand new parking lot, in my mind. So stay tuned.
I just want to make sure it was brought to their attention that they don't throw a graffiti wall at us and then ask for redemption after it's done. I mean,
Graffiti can be art. Graffiti is art.
Let them know up front that they just can't just spray paint a building without somebody's okay, you know?
Graffiti's art. But yes, no, he knows. And he's,
Yeah, the
but he's
4 aliens are
excited
still there.
because it's going to be inside, so he's no, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, inside walls are fine, yeah.
I'll keep you guys posted on this development agreement as it happens. Normally I'm a little hesitant about these kind of things, but I feel good about this particular property owner. I think his vision for his particular properties, I think, meshes extremely well with what you all have outlined in your master plan, and I think that this is one of those instances where it's good to be a little bit more on the proactive side. Let's see. 502 South Main, CNC Bump Shop, Dakota. So they went to court yesterday. I was wrong. I think I told you guys a couple weeks ago that they were going to court last week, but I got my dates off. So they went to court yesterday, and essentially they have been given 30 days to either remove every iota of light or demolish the property. So we'll see how that goes. That was what was agreed upon. I know love letters are already being drafted, reminder love letters. So, and I know I've had a lot of people.
They don't
ask me-
care, do they?
The owner, I think they care.
Really?
I think-
They would have done something before they went to court.
Well, it changed.
30 days
It
to clean
changed
all that.
hands here in the last year or so, so somebody else bought
No,
it.
the
with,
same
like,
gentleman has owned that
ideals, and
particular
then-
property for at least 2 years now.
Yeah.
So,
I remember them
and
coming with all
he's
their
a-
boxwood.
it's the same gentleman who did the unauthorized remediation. is, all right, same guy. So it's been a couple of years. And so, yeah, we should see either a pristine building in sight or
An empty lot.
an empty lot that'll hopefully be cleaned up. So, well, I gotta make a note for myself.
The court order was to remove the light or blight? What'd you say?
Blight.
Ah, makes more sense.
Blight.
Thank you.
Blight.
All the lights.
Blight. Yes.
We gotta go
B-L-I-T-E.
dark.
Blight.
I thought I heard the same thing.
I thought the
I don't know
neighbors
if there's
just
any
didn't-
lights on there, to be honest with you. I don't know. So
Worst light ever.
it is the most, it's such a glaring light. No,
You
it's
heard that too?
It's the blight. It's the blight.
A lot clears the light.
Also, so 400 South Main, we touched upon them a few minutes ago. So we got plans to review. They had originally submitted back in December, I want to say, and finally have provided us revised plans to review again. So
What is 400?
for vacant, it's vacant right now.
Vacant lot.
No, it's a vacant building. It's on the corner of Charlevoix right there. It's
Across
the old-
from,
by the-
next to Evolve.
Yeah,
on the
next to
outside.
Evolve.
Oh, is that what
and
that
the
payment place
orthodontist.
was or something? There was-
Yeah, it used to
Premier
be
payment.
Yeah.
Premier payroll.
payroll.
Okay, that's also,
Yes, so they submitted plans, so those are under review. Hoping to maybe get those to you by the 11th. In the meantime, they're also going to court tomorrow. So,
for the same thing?
for blight, I sincerely, I don't, I can't say for 100% certainty that we're not seeking demolition, but my guess is that we're just seeking blight removal for
How
that.
are we doing with Atomic Chicken? Are they on the list of,
Atomic Chicken, well, so one of the particular owners of Woodpile is also owner of Atomic Chicken. And so we will be discussing that on Thursday when we meet with him. He has asked about, all right, so last fall, he had a potential user for the site, and we also entered into a development agreement with him, said that we would only allow him occupancy if he completely redid the parking lot, because
Right.
that's the only way anybody's going to get into that site. So he has asked whether or not he can reactivate, for lack of a better word, that development agreement. I believe he can, but that's a question for the city attorney. So I have not given him a thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm just kind of, so we'll find out what's going to happen with Atomic Chicken. I know the chicken's not going to stay. Whoever goes there next will not have a chicken.
probably going to Mary Liz?
Something. Maybe plant it in the backyard and they can it could be like a kid's playscape or something.
Historical Museum needs to have that.
Right on there.
Right on there. I'm sure Melody would
Okay.
be kicking me right now and saying, no.
So I think
They were
that
knocking
is
the door.
everything I have. For giggles here, I'll end you on a couple of high notes. So Zioli's is open.
Wow.
Go check it out. It looks gorgeous, gorgeous. So we're going to lunch there on
Where do you recommend
Thursday.
we park?
In their parking lot.
Okay.
Or in the on-street parking that's in front of their building, or possibly even the city lot that is a mere
I
block
know.
away.
I'm just-
Yes.
Sorry.
Or if I really wanted to burn calories, I could just go up to the church.
You could do that too, down to the church, yes.
church parking
Or
lot.
you can come up here. There's a multitude of spots that you could park at. So Zioli's is open, go check them out. Also open is Salt and Sugar, delicious too. So hit those places up. So,
Salt and Sugar do lunch?
they do lunch. Mario and I had the pleasure of going to lunch there last week, and it was delicious. So if you're in the mood for a tasty salad.
I see Osaka is hiring. They have a sign for.
Yes, and I have asked repeatedly, when are you guys actually going to open?
Well, yeah, they seem to be in
Crickets.
such a hurry to get
Crickets. I know.
their occupancy, and then nothing.
So I'm not
They got one
not
of the best
certain what their
dumpster
hold is.
enclosures I've ever seen.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, Parking
Right.
lot's really nicely done.
Right? So,
I see also our Idle Pizza Parlor changed the M and the C.
Yeah, Carmoni's. So
This week.
I have no idea what the details are, but apparently there was some troubles within the partnership, and they've presumably gone their separate ways, and now it is Carmoni's Pizza. I've been assured that it's going to move forward, but
They actually serve a pizza someday?
I preferred Marconi's myself, but, oh wait, they never opened.
I'm not going to hate before I try the pizza.
How could you prefer? I have a question.
Yes.
Did we ever hear back, they came in here and would the planning commission and the city like this kind of idea? Did we ever hear back from that group that was talking about buying the Super 8 and putting in because obviously the news the other day
Yeah.
about what the Super 8's famous for kind
Yeah.
of makes one think, wow, it sure would be nice if they came back and bought that and put something else in there, because I'm not thinking it could be much worse.
Right, I know, there was, yeah. No, we have not heard back from them. However, if they're also watching the news, it wouldn't surprise me if I get a phone call from them in the next week
Yeah,
or so.
price drop.
I've been working on updating the available properties list. We have like maybe a dozen. They're on there, and they're asking 2.1 million for that particular property.
Does it come with the amenities?
I kind of hope not. So we'll see. We'll see. I know that cities, their Super 8 is they're being followed up on regularly. How's that?
Good to know.
Yeah. So I'll let you know. But I haven't heard back from those guys. I
Thanks,
had followed up with them a couple months ago. And they had indicated that a sale had fallen through, but there's also not been any record of sale that's come through since their supposed sale fell through. So,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
And thank you, Mario, for this memorandum, the zoning ordinance amendments discussion. We all got copies of that. We can read them at our leisure, and it's going to give us like bullet points to discuss if we come up with ideas.
If I just gave a couple minutes, just like you said, bullet points. Basically, I just wanted to present something in front of you to review with regards to the zoning ordinance. As you know, we were previously working on some amendments to the zoning ordinance, and one of the things this memo wants to introduce you is the idea of doing a technical audit. It would be a strategic review of the entire zoning ordinance and go over a variety of issues. And this would be a document, it would be a memo document that would highlight what should be looked at and would be a guide for us to undertake revising the zoning ordinance. So it goes over things, not only general zoning issues beginning at bottom page, but it looks at all the definitions, making sure that they are more contemporary, rather than specifically speaking to particular uses, a little bit more general, because that way it'll be able to fluctuate with modern standards.
Be more flexible.
Exactly, yeah. Because as we know, commerce is changing, seems like monthly. So in terms of what offers, it provides definitions that would be definitely related to what we are concerned with zoning, in terms of size, in terms of scale, in terms of how much of an impact any type of use would have on a particular area. We would review the inconsistencies and conflicts within the current language, those sections that contradict each other. We have recommendations that could clarify and simplify the ease of use in terms of the layout and the amount of tables involved. We'd make sure that the master plan priorities are identified and ways to implement them. We'd also look at the zoning board of appeals decisions. If there are particular issues that the zoning board continues to consider, then maybe that's something that needs to be addressed by amending the zoning ordinance.
We don't meet that often. There's
no, that's
probably
true.
not a lot of
True.
controversy there, which is good.
Yeah, exactly.
I
And
mean,
that's actually,
yeah.
it's a good thing, and that's the one thing you would want, is to make sure that the ZBA actually doesn't have to meet that often, because the ordinance is meeting the goals of the community. But we would also make sure to point out any areas in which current legal issues need to be addressed. That's one of the current issues that the draft, amendment we're looking at right now is, for example, related to licensing of state facilities for group homes and for daycares and that sort of thing. Other coding standards, making sure that anything within the zoning ordinance is compliant with and works in concert with other codes, like the building code, the fire code, and that sort of thing. And then any other miscellaneous items. That's what a technical audit would do. But as I mentioned, we do have the current issues under the draft that was done a couple months ago. Those mainly go into, they're minor revisions to like the definitions. As I mentioned, it goes into dealing with making sure that the zoning ordinance is compliance with the State Licensed Facility Act and other minor tweaks to the use definitions. And so one of the things I was thinking is I definitely don't want to lose that in terms of moving forward. So there's two options we could do. We could power through and deal with those issues and then do the technical audit and go over the zoning ordinance. Or
You can't incorporate the first into
well,
the second?
that would be my actual
That's what I'd like
recommendation,
to do.
is that to take a look, to hold a meeting with the planning commission and basically call it a issues prioritization meeting. We'd basically, rather than talk specifically about each issue, identify everything that we initially would think need to be addressed in an amendment rewrite, identify those issues that are starting to be tackled, and any other issues that you feel like to address, whether it's about TCOs, whether it's about bonding, whether it's about landscaping standards.
Houses.
It's an outhouses, exactly. Just identify everything, and then take a look at that list and prioritize them. So identifying issues that we feel, all right, these are priorities, we should tackle that first, we could tackle that right away. And then other issues that do need to be addressed but can wait for a comprehensive amendment, then that would happen in the next year. So the last page is just a sample schedule of how this could work. And mainly, first we would have our meeting where we just identify issues, prioritize them. Then I would go back and draft a memo, initial memo to identify the priority issues, have one meeting where you direct me as to how you'd want each issue addressed, and then present you with draft language for priority issues. So it'd be all about the priority issues in 2018. Going through that review process, presenting it to you, have you review it, make some edits. Hopefully, if it gets done in one round, then hold a public hearing and adopt those first. And then concurrently, I would be doing a technical audit of the ordinance. And then as soon as the priority issues are done, we can kick off and start going with
Because some of your audit's not going to matter depending on some of the issues, right? I mean, we might be changing or tossing out
Well, the audit would reflect the priority issues.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the audit would first say, all right, these issues were addressed. And so now, because an audit is good because it gives us a guide as to how to address each section. And so then basically, looking at all the meeting requirements and public hearing issues, we'd be starting in 2019 with the audit as our guide and going through the ordinance in measured increments, hopefully completing all that by the end of the year, and then having a complete zoning ordinance amendment to consider.
Are you proposing that we hold like workshops pre-planning meetings? You have dates, but you don't really have a structure.
Yeah, this actual is mainly about, I believe it's the first meeting of every month would be more focused on the zoning ordinance edits.
This isn't a way that we can have that meeting. Sitting like this, I mean, not that it doesn't get taped, but you kind of need a discussion, circle or whatever where you can talk. So I'm asking, are you talking about having like a workshop prior to the meeting? It would still have to be recorded, obviously, because we're sitting together as a body, so Open Meetings Act and everything, but a workshop, and then we stop that business, we move on to the official business of the evening, and then
Yeah, that would be, I think, the best way to do it, because it would be about presenting you with each individual proposed changes and taking a look at them and discussing them and going over the.
I'm going to speak for, because she's not here right now, so I am single, no kids, no commitment, and I work from home. So this is easy for me. It is not easy for George. It is not easy for Annie. It will not be easy for Melissa. I think Greg and I are probably on the same page. I know you've got kids. I mean, so it's not necessary, and so it needs to be done. I am pushing for it to be done. I mean, I keep bringing it up, so obviously I want it, and I think this is a great plan, and now Annie can speak for her own, and she has some other stuff she wants to speak on too. But I want to throw out there for the benefit of others, and they should definitely speak up, what is the best way to have these meetings or make some of this happen, given that not everybody is, as lucky as I am to not have children. Sorry, that's how I look at it.
I will say that that definitely speaks to every community and every commission, because you're volunteers, you're sacrificing your time away from your families or away from your free time. Reese, I'm sure you're sacrificing your free time to be here. So there's that.
It's more flexible. The point is my time it's just frankly more flexible. If you have children, it's just not as flexible.
Right.
And I work from home.
Right.
They don't.
And so, but I will say just that, that's definitely something we just have to work with. And that's why something like this, because it is the zoning ordinance, it's very massive. There's so many issues. There's 28 divisions in the zoning ordinance. So it does take time. So the only thing I was hoping is just the idea, if you would, how you feel, get your opinion on the idea of at least doing the audit. So having that framework, because I think the framework can identify the pieces that we have to do.
Yeah, just a matter of finding the timing. I don't think a half an hour is enough time. An hour would be enough time, but does everyone want to get here an hour before the regular scheduled meeting?
Or do we simply have to think of alternative dates, times that are more, I don't know, because I am other people need to, and this probably isn't the place to have that long, drawn-out discussion, but maybe send an email thing, that says, hey, how, what are some ideas, because does anybody here disagree that this needs to be done?
No, it has to be done.
Right, we know this has to be done, so I just think we should give everybody a chance to advocate for, and try and come to an agreement on what's going to work best for all of us, because I think there are some amazing minds up here, and I want all of those minds included in the process.
It can't be resolved by emails, but it can be directed by emails. We can get some topics going at least.
No, I'm not talking about, and some of that could go, I'm talking about setting the times. I'm talking about having people weigh in on what they can,
the meeting format and structure.
When they can meet, the times they can meet, how that's going to work. That's what I'm talking about.
Potentially preferred days,
that frankly is
things
the
like
biggest
that.
barrier to making this happen. It's not us all sitting together. It's all getting together.
I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so that is obviously a big concern. My concern is actually, the primary concern is a little bit different. So I wanted to know whether this is included in the scope of the current contract. And if not, we're talking about considerable amount of billable hours. We have an RFP out at the minute. I believe that this should be tabled to the next one, and then McKenna could, of course, put in for that. But I don't know that it's appropriate for us to be, biting off this big chunk of work when the council has, they have sent out an RFP for planning services. So I think we need to think about that before we even get into the formatting and the timing and all those other things. I agree it needs to be done, but I think that there's a conversation that needs to happen between staff and council and planning commission about the timing of this chunk of work. And I think if and when it does happen, I think that there could be a joint working group, of not everybody having to participate in every meeting. And I think that I would like to see anyways a response to an RFP that comes back with a scope of services that, brings that into, brings that up and talks about some of those ways, because I think that really is the contractor that should be doing the bulk of that and presenting those findings to the city.
Right. And so, to be frank with you, I'm taking this opportunity to demonstrate that I have that ability. And so before the 20th of September, I thought I'd just demonstrate that idea. But I do think that this is something that you don't necessarily have to lose. Whomever is here after the September 20th, you can indicate that, all right.
We had a plan.
Right. We had have the idea.
The board can champion it as opposed to plan.
Right. Exactly.
So
and so just as an alternative. And then also Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a very aggressive schedule. I mean, this is, says September 11th, we'd have our priority meeting. And that was just because I thought, okay, well, let's just pick a day and start. And then definitely in terms of the organization, I mean, the monetary aspect of it, there's the alternatives. You know, you can do it, what we would consider a lump sum. The audit would be considered, we would come up with a fee, and then that would be something that would be a flat fee, so that way it doesn't get too out of whack.
Well, I can't imagine that the city would agree to concurrent contracts for planning services. I could be wrong, but I mean.
No, that happens all the time. Like, for example, most master plans are done as a lump sum in addition to any kind of continuing services contract. That happens.
Well, I mean, but I mean, two different I mean,
Oh,
that
no,
should
absolutely.
be part
Yeah, yeah.
of the next planning contract,
yeah,
knowing
yeah.
that that's a piece of work that the
Oh,
city
yeah, absolutely.
requires.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
I don't think they'll split that up piecemeal. I would hope not.
In all due respect to Mario, because Mario is pretty fantastic. Yeah, no, it's my expectation that whomever is our planning provider after this RFP, it's my expectation that this is the work that they do, like overhaul our stuff.
But that needs to be, I mean, I don't
And
know, I haven't seen the current RFP, but if that's not laid out in
Of
there.
course we haven't.
Then we need to understand what that is so they can respond to the scope of services and the amount that they would seek
It is
to
on,
bill.
it's been posted, it was posted
It was
last.
posted this afternoon, I saw posted.
No, it was posted last week on the Michigan Association of Planning. So,
It's actually posted on Facebook, too.
Yeah, Facebook.
But do we know if?
Not the RFP.
I would like this technical audit to be in there. I mean, it should be in there so they
This
can
is
respond to that as part of the
the-
scope of service.
the scope is fairly detailed. I mean, there is room within the scope of the RFP for outside projects that aren't necessarily listed. However, zoning is on there.
I realize that we're all capable of going
This
online and
is one of the
pulling this
projects
stuff
that's
up.
on there.
But I think it would have been nice to just, I mean, if this is okay, flipping some random email out and having it read into the record, if that's okay, how hard would it have been to send everybody on the planning commission the copy of the RFP directly via email that said FYI, because these are, if, you know, I shouldn't have to go hunt for it, search for it, and follow every single thing. We should have just had it. And then actually, Annie, I think that would have answered our question right away without even having to say we're not sure how that would work, because we would know what's in there. So I'm officially, once again, want to just make that statement that I think that was kind of inappropriate, that should have just been sent to us. That would have been a professional courtesy. So
Take it up with management.
I just did.
So, just so I understand, so doing an internal audit is out of scope?
No, what it is, if I understand correctly, Annie's concerned that the RFP makes sure that zoning issues are addressed as part of that. And it is, and as Susie said, it is part of the scope. This particular approach detail isn't in there, so that's why I'm saying I'm taking this opportunity
I see what you're saying. Okay.
to consider this approach. Obviously, other firms are capable of doing it, and obviously, the best way to do that is for whomever is providing services to provide that as well. And so then when it comes to this type of thing, when you're getting into the details of whether that's provided hourly or whether that's provided as a separate service, it all depends on your experience. Because there are definitely communities that have done it hourly, and the bills, sometimes they think, oh, the bills pile up. But then other communities do it with a lump sum contract, and then they do have their own separate lump sum contract. So, because that way they can make sure that the fee is set, and they'll know from the get-go how much it would be. But that's not to say, you know, whether in the end they're both equal when it's either billed hourly or lump sum, or which one is more than the other. Like I said, it depends on the management and their experience with RFPs and everything. But yeah, whomever would be selected should have the ability
Right.
to do it.
It's administrative.
So just my little slide.
Okay.
Now, Mario, we have to allow every applicant to come to the board meeting. No, seriously.
Well, you'd like
We
to
do.
think, yeah. That you
They have
think
to
so.
come now and be able to pitch their plan.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Thank you. Anything else before we close down? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, no, I
What?
wanted, I'm sorry.
Oh, you wanted to talk about,
I want, you
No,
had
not
mentioned
anymore, don't. Not anymore, don't.
something. You sure?
We'll talk about it another day, yeah.
Okay, 'cause I wanted to hear what you had to say. I mean, you're.
Silence.
I'll make it very brief. I think we need to relook at the bonding requirement that we're putting out there. These individuals that are showing up here
They have
do
no clue
not
what it
have the
means.
capability of bond. It's not even, shouldn't be called a bond, because I would bet we don't have any bonds on file right now. I bet it's all cash. So.
Well, there is a way to do it. There is a,
We do have a couple bonds.
Yeah.
yeah, we do.
Yeah.
There is a
Paperwork on
bonding,
it.
I can't remember what was the name of the organization that went out and got the right one. I mean, there is a bonding, you can go to a bonding insurance provider, and this is a surety bond, and they're not that hard to do. What I have said in the past, and what I'll continue to say is, we don't have to recommend one, but we could explain to these lay people who don't understand this, they should get a sheet that says, here's what it is, here's how you get one, blah, 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 and I don't think that.
If we have a company that's willing to provide these type of bonds for the applicants that come in front of us, that would be ideal then, if there's a company out there. I don't know of one. Okay,
There are.
and that's
Oh,
great.
yeah.
If there is, it's great.
There are, but they should be given some assistance in identifying, instead of just,
then-
hey, go get a bond, because that
Right.
means nothing.
And I'm telling you, just cautioning us in the city that when we take these cash bonds, right, who functions as the auditor when they don't perform? Because that opens the city up for liability. This is, like I said, this is a discussion for another day.
Well, and it's probably should be part of this, because
It
the
probably
one thing
should.
that you don't have on here, Mario, is you're talking about the ordinances alone, but we really should be talking about some of our procedures in conjunction with this, because there's clearly, I mean, this is the first time I've ever seen something like this, and it was very helpful. If we got this every meeting with, whoever dropped off and whoever got added as an ongoing thing, that would be extremely helpful to
Agree.
follow along and take. I mean, so there's a lot of procedural things that we could be doing to make things much easier for our applicants and for the people, the business in the community, make it easier for us and make it easier for staff, and to be consistent. And so procedures really should be part of this process, which I know they're two separate things, but one doesn't happen without the other. How we enforce the ordinance requires us to think of, our procedures. So is that?
I agree, yes,
Okay.
100%.
Yeah, because I do share your concerns. I mean, we went through the whole bond thing, but I don't think it was ever resolved well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you said you had a few things, Annie.
No, that was in response to this, but and that's why I said that probably shouldn't have to say that to an applicant after the fact, but they didn't know where to start or when they got a TCO or what, so they would have come back in 2 weeks and said, oh, we're good, right? So we have to have some channels of communications and procedures in place. I know we started talking about a packet. I think there is a packet. I don't know if that includes this, but again, like we don't see the stuff that goes back and forth to the applicants, so I don't know. Does it include that?
Like a bond packet? What?
We had talked about those things.
We have, yes, we've talked about we've been talking about that since pretty much the beginning of the year, asking the city attorney for a bond form. And,
Got halfway through and nothing ever
And
happened, and it didn't finish, and.
it's not quite what I ever envisioned. I don't think it's quite what at least most of you ever envisioned.
insufficient.
I don't know, I don't know, I personally don't know what to look for and what kind of things that we need, because it's not part of my expertise, right? So, I had wanted, my hope was that the city attorney was going to be able to really provide us with some, like a good example and some good instructions on it, since he is supposed to be the one that vets those things.
As I said, it was insufficient what we got. Okay.
3, 2, all right, I'll make a motion to adjourn
Okay.
tonight's regularly scheduled
support
planning
that?
commission meeting.
Support.
Yeah, I got motion support. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Audia?
Yes.
Ms. Fenton?
Yes?
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it.